Welcome, wrestling fans, to the PW Fan. The PW Fan is a pro wrestling podcast created by fans for fans, and we appreciate you joining us for episode 41. I'm your host, the old school wrestling fan, collector, barber, musician, the guy with too many hobbies, talk wrestling, Tim Gilbert.
And I'm your host, the architect of pro wrestling podcasts and Funko Pop collector, Andy.
I'm also your host, the no-selling wrestling indie fan and football lover, Jeremy.
I am not the host, but happy to be here. Your Jockzilla, bringing all the energy. Breaux Keller. I know I might have won quite a few championships in the ring, but fun fact for you, super dope on a pogo stick. So take that and do what you will with it.
Absolutely. That's how you do an intro.
Yeah,
there we go.
That's a PW Fan exclusive. Breaux Keller is a master of the pogo stick.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we are absolutely excited to have you here. Before we start getting into that stuff, just giving the rundown of the show, today we're going to be talking about Forbidden Door and reviewing it. And then after the Forbidden Door review, we're going to be doing a special interview with Breaux about his career, some of his experiences in the wrestling business such thus far, a little bit of the history, and maybe how he got into wrestling. It's going to be really fun and give you a lot of behind-the-scenes insight. He's worked behind the scenes for AEW and done a lot of really cool things, so excited to talk to him. Before we get started on the show, if you could head on over to the PW Fan on YouTube, where we have our full library of episodes posted, and you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. For merchandise, you want to go to prowrestlingtees.com/the PW Fan to get your pocket logo shirt. And at the end, we're going to let Breaux pitch all of his merch too, because I'm sure he's got a store. He's got lots of things going on. So I know I'm going to be buying something at the end of the show. All right, Andy. So like usual, I'm going to pass it over to you and let you do our weekly breakdown. Okay.
Alrighty, a couple things from Raw this week. I don't know how much you guys saw. So Rhea Ripley was supposed to wrestle Bianca Belair at Money in the Bank, but she is injured. So Bianca needed a new opponent, and they ended up having kind of a six-pack challenge. And Carmella ended up becoming the next contender, which I did not see coming at all. She's kind of been off TV for a while. But yeah, so no more Rhea Ripley. That seemed to have halted the Judgment Day's momentum, because last thing I heard, they were on Saturday night's main event as soon as, Rhea got hurt. So, they were on a prime spot every single week, but now they've kind of fallen off.
But is this
so
also...
we'll have to see what happens with that.
That's horrible.
Does any of that have to do with the whole, Edge thing? Because once he left and then they replaced him with Finn, so... Were they already doing Saturday night's main event stuff, or at that point, or did that only happen after Rhea got hurt? Okay, so they kind of
it was after Rhea got hurt. Yeah,
it kind of felt like maybe they.
Rhea was in a main spot.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, she was
not
doing
too
awesome.
Sure.
What do you, bro? What do you think of Rhea Ripley? She's pretty badass, right? I like her a lot.
Super badass, and I'm listening to all this unfold here, and it's so weird to hear that they were only on Saturday Night's Main Event. Is that what you were just saying, or just main? Is it just the show before the show? However they.
Yeah, but whatever it's called. Yeah, but yeah, unfortunately,
which is so weird because what you were just mentioning, they were a featured position week in, week out, even on the pay-per-views too. And then Edge goes out. I guess Finn subbed in for him now, and then it just kind of shoved off to the side.
Yep. Yeah. So,
which didn't make any sense in the first place, but we don't have much.
Well, I talked about it. I talked about it last week. I was like, Edge won the match for them at the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
He pinned Riddle, and then they kick him out the next week saying he's the weak link. It just didn't make any sense. If he had lost the match, then it would have made sense.
Yeah.
Very good point.
I always love that kind of stuff. Andy always has funny, Andy takes everything very literally, so he'll just point out things that I'm I didn't even think of that. It just makes me laugh. Jeremy,
go ahead.
Yeah, you need that. No, you need someone like that who's just no, what?
Doesn't make any.
Jeremy, did
sense.
you end up seeing any of it?
No, I was just agreeing with Andy. It didn't make any sense to begin with, and I saw that they were on main event, and that's already once you're on main event, it's I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's going to get much better.
just getting buried. But
No,
Um,
look, there's
another
hope. There's Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder. A lot of those dudes have bounced back. You just gotta they can do it. It's just if they're super talented, I think it's possible. Which all those people.
well,
are.
like a Pilot Cruz is now officially back in NXT 2.0, like full
It's good
time.
for him though.
Yeah,
See,
and he lost his accent and everything. So
if you take me
back
back
to being normal Pilot Cruz.
What accent did he have before?
An African accent said that this was.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
because he's really from Nigeria,
Nigeria.
and he was the Nigerian prince or whatever. And then he goes back to NXT and he is completely just back to his regular, American sounding accent. So,
dude.
Another thing I want to talk about with Raw this week, we had another weird Vince McMahon coming out to the ring.
What is that about? I don't understand
Dude.
why he's doing that.
So last week,
yeah, go ahead.
Last week we talked about the scandal, and he had come out on SmackDown and was just like, then, now, and forever, and most importantly, together. And then this week he comes out, acts like nothing's wrong, and announces Cena's return.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
that was we were
so
recording,
weird.
and then Tim was like, "Vince is on TV again." Like, what?
Yeah,
I was like, what's happening?
Yeah,
It's just so insensitive too, right? Like, am I the only one?
yeah,
That like you're just kind of rubbing it in this woman's face.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
definitely.
I don't get.
Well, apparently a lot of the locker room thinks it's like super insensitive and like off color and all that.
Well, you got to think
from
a
what I
lot of
read,
those.
so.
A lot of those people in the locker room now are like our generation. Like I'm 31, like, and I feel like we're all kind of like in a mindset where you're like, dude, that obviously that stuff is like not okay at all. And Vince is like an old head dude, and he's like, yeah, look at this, and like everybody that's our age is like, no, what? Like I'm not
Right.
down with this.
That's like when he said the together part. I'm like, no, Vince, we're not together on
Yeah,
this.
not together. Yeah, not together.
Right.
There's some case that is like coming up that they tried to hush about back in the day. Apparently, I read about it today.
I've read all
more
the-
stuff's
I've read-
coming out. Yeah,
This is like some real old stuff. I've read all this stuff.
it doesn't matter. Omos qualified for Money in the Bank. We had a funny Ezekiel, Elias, and Kevin Owens segment. They did some camera magic, and they had Ezekiel sitting next on the couch next to Elias, and then they had Elias with his beard and everything play guitar in the ring, and Kevin Owens comes out and starts freaking out, and then you have Ezekiel pop up on the screen. So I was really looking at the beard. I was like, I mean, it's definitely fake because we know he doesn't actually have a brother.
That was a good
But-
fake beard.
It was a great fake beard. I was looking real hard for it, but we've talked about it. I think this stuff is just so funny because
Yeah.
it's just like they know it's ridiculous. It's not like the whole Jason Jordan, Kurt Angle's your dad thing, and they like were actually trying to sell it. They're like making a joke out of this. So
It's all tongue in cheek. It feels like such a wink at the audience, and everybody's
yeah,
into it. It was just like
it's great.
back in like 2016 with the list. Everybody knew it was such ridiculous nonsense, but if you were putting up that list, like, whoa, crowd would be same thing. I love it.
And Kevin Owens, you can't do it without him because he's making it, this whole feud and everything as well. Yeah, I'm just again moving quickly. Bobby Lashley, in theory, is set for a U.S. title match. I'm not sure I think it's at Money in the Bank. I don't know. They've been doing title matches lately on Raw and SmackDown, so I'm just kind of all over the place with it. And lastly, Asuka qualified for Money in the Bank by beating Becky Lynch. I have no idea what they're doing with Becky. I mean, they had her in a match, I think, with Dana Brooke for the 24/7 title. And then, but that was basically, I think, I was mad at first, and then she got on the mic and was like talking about how she's getting disrespected and stuff. So I think it was all part of whatever they're doing with her. But
Do you think Becky's turning back to face?
I don't know. She's a new phase in Becky's character. What was it like? It was like Becky Two Belts, then it was Big Time Bex. Big Time Bex was after Becky Two Belts. But yeah, that wrapped it up for Raw. There was a couple things from Dynamite I wanted to talk about that kind of set the tone for, or set up Forbidden Door a little bit more. Bryan Danielson addressed the fans. He was supposed to be in Forbidden Door, I believe, wrestling Zack Sabre Jr., and he is hurt. Does anyone know what he's hurt
No.
with?
I don't know.
There's a lot of injuries in the wrestling world.
So
going
many
on right now,
Dude.
I need to know.
So he addressed he's going to miss Blood and Guts. I know that. He was saying he was going to miss Forbidden Door. So hopefully he gets back in the ring soon. It would have been awesome to see him at the pay-per-view, but we got someone else instead.
Yeah.
Christian Cage addressed the fans and ended up mentioning Jungle Boy's dead dad, which I was like, dude, like, sometimes they say some shit. I'm just like, oh my god, like MJF, like when he mentions, or had mentioned to
Brian
Pillman Jr. Yeah,
Yeah.
That one was
Like,
gnarly.
God
That
damn,
one was
man.
gnarly. I was like, oh my god.
Deep cuts.
yeah, dude. So,
I mean, to be
so
honest,
Christian-
Now,
this was the best Christian we've seen recently.
I love heel Christian. Heel Christian's great.
if you don't mind, I have a question here for Bro. Now, if you feel like this gives away a little too much of the magic, feel free to no comment me. But when someone's digging that deep, right? Like when someone's like, "Hey, like I'm gonna say some shit." Usually beforehand, do you say like, "Hey, I'm gonna like say some pretty gnarly stuff. Are you cool with this?" Or do you just go out and do it and then hope later that you guys can just be like, "Yeah, we're professionals, right? Like it's all good." Like what's the better way to do that?
Yeah, and with stuff like that, well, first of all, I feel like all the magic's already out the door anyway, right? So I'm about
Right. Okay, cool. All right.
But no, there's not really like a protocol on that. So especially on the indies, everything's pretty much just all up in the air. People will just cut promos, throw it up there, post it online, and everybody sees it. And then it's almost like on you as the opponent, if you're not the one that started it, to okay, so it's like that. Now I gotta fire stuff. But I have to imagine, like in that instance, being on TV, being a weekly episodic, national televised program, there had to have been some discussion beforehand. Like, dude, like, can we take it there? And Jungle Boy was probably like, I guess let's take it there if that's what it's gonna take. So I don't know.
Right. Okay.
That's my theory on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always wondered because the other scenario is, you just go for it, and then when they get backstage at the end of the night, he's like, "Dude, what the hell?" And he's like, "Sorry, man, I got a little carried away."
Like they got two into character right there, man. Not bad.
Right.
That's why on the indies they just say stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and honestly, it's not even that. Let's call it like it is. And even myself, I could do more of them, but nobody on the indies really does promos anymore. It's like few and far between. So like sometimes if it's built into a show, you'll see them. But even like hyping up a match or whatever, just because there's so many wrestlers and so many promotions, I don't think enough people like do promos the way they should.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably.
No, that's awesome. I can't wait.
Or something.
Yeah, I can't wait to get a little bit more into promos because we're gonna definitely get some more. I'm loving hearing all this like kind of behind the scenes stuff. This is super cool. Just a good,
Oh yeah,
good,
we'll definitely
change up
dive
for the
more
show
later.
I got you.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna keep moving forward. Malachi Black qualified for the All Atlantic Championship match. He beat Penta Oscuro. Which I mean, if you already knew Pac was going to be in the match, doubt they would put Penta against him. But
Well, Penta couldn't anyways because of AAA.
that's right. I did read that. I forgot about that. Good call. And lastly for Dynamite, there was a segment: Adam Cole, Hangman Page, and Jay White in the ring, and out comes Okada. Big pop. Kind of surreal to see Okada in AEW.
Yeah, super cool.
Super cool, and it looks like, I mean, at the time that this was happening, that we were getting a 4-way for the IWGP World Title, which we will end up getting at the pay-per-view. So it's definitely a big match. We'll get into it. Stuff went down at the end of the match, but real quick, want to run through SmackDown. More, qualifying for Money in the Bank. Sami Zayn qualified. Shotzi Blackheart qualified for Money in the Bank, and Pat McAfee called out Happy Corbin for a match at SummerSlam. Pretty good promo, actually, by him. The Rock gave him props. He did mention The Rock in his promo, or did some of The Rock's lines. The Rock tweeted at him.
He called him a bum-ass Corbin, didn't he? Or something like that?
Bum-ass Corbin, yeah. The Rock loves it. And said he was going to lay the smackdown on him and stuff like that. But so it looks like, we're getting Mac. And look, McAfee can go. He had the match against Adam Cole. He had the War Games match. He had the match with Theory at Mania.
We're just going to skip over the one with Vince, though. That's not a match.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Kick the football into the stomach or whatever, ribs. I had absolutely nothing from Rampage that didn't already, wasn't already set up for Forbidden Door. I think we had a match of Cash Wheeler versus Jeff Cobb. I mean, that was a good match. That was on Rampage, I believe.
Yeah.
Hook was on it.
I think it was the main event. But yeah, let's dive into Forbidden Door. Now, I don't know if you guys saw the buy-in. I did. I know you can't really go back and watch it if you missed it, but I'm going to run through those quickly, and then we'll get into the main card. So you had Aaron Solo and QT Marshall versus, and if I mess up any of these New Japan guys' names, I apologize, unless you guys can correct me. Versus,
I forgot that you were going to have to do all that.
Yes. So it's Aaron Solo and QT Marshall of the Nightmare, or is it of the Factory versus Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi. Winners were Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi. Then we had Nick Camarado versus Lance Archer. Winner was Lance Archer. And then we had
he's a huge guy.
Both of those guys.
Yeah, he's tall as shit.
Massive. I'm allowed to swear. You guys swear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Say whatever you want.
Fucking massive. Holy shit.
I mean, Nick Camarado's big as fuck too.
Nick Camarado, you're spot on with that.
Yeah.
Harry.
Which makes sense why they paired him up, in this match. We had Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, which they're calling Swerve in My Glory, versus, oh god, this is going to be fun. Yoshinobu Kanemaru, I think that was it. Yeah. And El Desperado.
Yeah.
Winner was Swerve and Lee. This is a pretty good match. It was I thought there was going to be 3 buy matches. It actually ended up being 4. And the final one was Max Caster and the Gun Club versus Yuya.
You say that the
Umura.
LA Dojo guys.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down in my phone, and then I actually LA Dojo graduates.
Yeah, there you go.
And at the beginning of the match, Danhausen came up on the screen, and I forget what he did, but everyone went to the back except for Max Caster and Billy Gunn.
Well, he said, I have a new song for the Ass Boys. And then I was like, funny song, and they ran to the back. Well,
so
real
they ran to
quick,
the back.
Bro, what do you think about Danhausen and like the comedy in wrestling?
It's a good balance. I think you need that in every wrestling show. Like, you can't all just be like wrestle. You need to have to like mix it up. So there's something for everybody. It's definitely an interesting gimmick. I will say that. And fun fact here.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this honestly until, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago. But at one point, I wrestled Danhausen before he was like in his current gimmick. He was like Donovan.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was like a match. I had no clue until like reflecting back. I was like, oh, well, that's a little.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
nice.
But yeah, definitely doing some.
So I wanted to ask you about him because I've read 2 different, and I don't know how much you know. I've read 2 different stories about him. The one is that, like a lot of things, like he was kind of struggling on the indies, and then he was like, you know what, I'm going to switch the character up and do something different just for fun. And then the other story I read is that he was doing, like when you wrestled him, he was doing that very serious, almost like Davey Richards kind of style, just like real, like I don't want to say stiff, but just like Dynamite Kid-esque kind of stuff. Right. And then the story I read is that he got kicked in the throat and was like, all right, like I don't want to do this type of shit anymore. And then I just want to have fun, which that I would also totally understand. Yeah. Either way, I totally understand. If I don't know which one of those stories is true, but
I feel like it's
Yeah.
got to be the first one because you're going to get kicked in the throat. Like the probability of that happening doesn't matter what your gimmick is.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, especially if
It's not-
you the kick.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Yeah, I'll just keep running through. Unless you guys got more questions about the Danhausen thing.
No, I just
No,
think
that's
it's cool.
cool.
I
Yeah.
just hearing that he got to work with him is super cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Because Danhausen's like one of our favorites here.
Oh
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
Love
Yeah.
Danhausen. I mean, I think we all just find him very entertaining.
Yeah.
and that,
Like we think he's like actually
love-
funny, not just
Yeah, like I loved Conan O'Brien when I was a teenager, and I remember even showing Andy in high school, trying to show him like Conan O'Brien sketches, and once he'd said that like his character was like based off him, like a demented Conan O'Brien, I like it kind of like a light bulb went off with me, and I like got it, and like now I just like now I think it's hilarious. Like at first I was like, what is this? But then like it like a lot of things, it'll grow on you.
all started clicking. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into later talk about some of the people that you've wrestled. But yeah, we'll save that for the end. So we were talking about Max Caster and Billy Gunn being the only guys left in the ring. They basically made kind of quick work of these LA New Japan dojo guys. Billy Gunn's out there yelling like, "This is bullshit." But
Dude, Billy Gunn is gigantic now.
He's
What's he-
huge.
oh,
He's
yeah.
huge.
Always been that big.
Yeah.
He's a huge guy.
Yeah, and you don't know it unless like you see him compared to other people, really, and then like because I don't think I've really realized it because everyone back then in WWE was massive. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
like when you
it,
stand
though,
it,
until
when
like,
you
he
standing
came
next to
AEW.
Taker, The Rock, and Stone Cold, you're like, okay, yeah, he's like
a normal
average
guy.
size, and then you
Yeah.
like see him like against a normal person, you're like, oh my god.
He's like the same size as Hogan, from what I understand. Like, that's how,
Wow.
yeah.
But yeah, so Max Caster and Billy Gunn were the only ones left in the ring, and they got the win, and that capped off our buy-in show for Forbidden Door. So let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of the pay-per-view itself. It opened up with Jericho, Jericho Guevara and Suzuki versus Kingston, Yuta, and Umino. Winners in the end were Jericho Guevara and Suzuki. What y'all think of the match? For those that have seen it, good for the opener, set the tone.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, wasn't expecting as much from this match as it was from other ones on the card, but this one, like the Kingston and Suzuki, when they were chopping each other, I was like, this makes the match. I don't care about anything else. Like they were just going at each other, and it was amazing to watch.
Kingston and Suzuki, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, both are just ready for a fight.
yeah. I mean, their chests were
So
like blood red within like 5 minutes, and I was like, Jesus.
I mean, I want to say this before we get too far into it. This pay-per-view was very good, especially the last couple matches where it was just banger after banger after. It was
especially
very
with
good.
a lot of people saying that the build wasn't great and all the injuries, so they had to shuffle things around. This was, I think, one of the best pay-per-views of the year.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
for
they
sure.
really delivered considering.
Yeah. So yeah, winners of that match, like I said, were Jericho, Guevara, and Suzuki. After that, we had a triple threat for the ROH and IWGP tag titles, winner take all. It was Roppongi Vice versus the United Empire, which representing them was Great Khan and Jeff Cobb, who were the IWGP tag team champions, and our favorites FTR. This match was a fucking banger. Winners in the end. I mean, FTR's over as much as any top star in these companies. Big pop for them. FTR won. They are now the AAA, ROH, and IWGP tag champions.
So sick.
I saw a tweet. I believe it was from Cash or Dax. It doesn't matter. If you remember back when their last stuff from Raw, they said 3 years ago I was shaving this man's back, and now now we're all these champions. So you never know where your career will go. They were shaving one of each other's backs in the shower, and this is when this was like the last shit they were doing with I think with like Carl Anderson and Gallows, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just like
That was
almost
rough.
like burying them. Yeah, it was bad. And now look at them. So couldn't have been happier with the winners. Jeremy, what you think of the match?
I loved it, just like you did. The moment, like when Dax got, like he had, I don't know if it was an angle or if it actually happened. Like he hurt his shoulder in the match, like the very beginning of it, and then he went to the back. But like that pop when he walked back out and the crowd went crazy and he got tagged right in. I was like that. I mean, it's like such good wrestling from FTR.
Tim, were you able to get around to seeing a lot of the pay-per-view today?
Yeah, I've watched everything, and then I actually watched a little bit of it again before we started recording. But yeah, I love this match. I thought it was really fun. I loved all the kind of simultaneous, or not simultaneous, but the different ways people were tagging in, and I think that which one got hurt? Was it Dax or Cash?
Yeah, it was Dax.
Dax. When Dax went to the back and Cash was wrestling by itself, it definitely created like a sense of like urgency in the match where you were kind of already rooting for them, but then you were rooting for them even more because then it's almost like a handicap match in that regard. But I mean, I love FTR. They remind me so much of the Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Arn and Tully. It's just like right up my alley of what I like with wrestling. So yeah, anything that they're usually a part of, I'm like giving the chef's kiss to.
Is there?
Yeah, and Tim, the only reason are they the best? You said are they the best tag team in the world?
Is there anyone better?
Oh, right now, I'd say they're top. They are top.
It
guys.
just and like I think this is the debate, right? Like it all comes down to what you like, right? So for me, and I don't want to speak for Andy and Jeremy, but I really like that kind of like pure wrestling style where it is. I don't know. I hate kind of like getting into this territory, but it's like more like sport based or whatever. But then, I mean, who am I also to say though, or who are we also to say that a team like the Young Bucks or the Lucha Bros aren't the best? You know, it's just a different style. It's just like completely different. You know, it's all. But me personally, I'm gonna say FTR, but I get and respectfully understand when people have other points of view. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love FTR as the top team, but I love all the other like styles as much because like the Young Bucks in the next match, they did that stupid thing where they do it flips and then they get to the corner, they just back rake the guy, and it's like a whole build up to it, and they did it like 4 times in a row. Like I still found that funny, but I prefer FTR over that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to this podcast, I mean, we were all the three of us were let down when we went to the last AEW show in Maryland. There was no FTR on the card. We were like, we were so bummed. No Punk and no FTR.
Yeah, but
just like, God damn.
You know who was there? Bro was there getting beat up by Wardlow.
Yeah,
taking a nice kick. A gnarly. Dude,
when the
kick
stands,
that you
Tim's
took
like,
from
I think
him
that's
looked
Bro
like it
down
hurt
there.
so bad.
It was so absurd. Yeah, I had like a print across my body for.
Did you?
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I want to get into that also when we eventually finish Forbidden Door.
We're hyping this interview. All right, so let's get there, brother.
After that, we had so FTR won the titles. We had Pac versus Miro versus Malachi Black versus Clark Connors of New Japan for the new All Atlantic Championship. I'll be honest, I did not see this winner coming. I thought it was going to be Miro, and it was Pac. This match was very good, I thought. And yeah, I mean, I think he deserves it. Or he's earned it, He's been with the company a while now. He busts his ass. He puts on great matches, and yeah, I just didn't see it coming with Miro freshly coming back.
Yeah, I thought it was Miro or Pac was going to win. I'm actually glad that Pac won because I feel like he's such an underrated wrestler because he puts on great matches, like you said, every single time he goes out.
He can go with anyone.
Yeah, and he can wrestle with any style. Like that's perfect guy to put that type of title on.
But I thought every guy in this match shined. They got a chance to shine. They all, hit their spots. Even Clark Connors, who was probably the most unknown name out of everyone out there, had his moments.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of him before this.
Yeah, I mean, he did get thrown out of the ring for the first 10 minutes of the match, but he eventually got in there.
Tim, are you recording yet? I don't see the red dot. Okay.
I hate living in the woods.
Hey,
There
here
we
go.
go.
All right.
So, Tim, we were just saying how Pac won the All-Atlantic Championship.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that was a really good match, too. I really liked that one. Yeah, Pac's like one of those guys where every time I see him, I'm just like amazed by the shape that he's in. I'm like, dude, to maintain that, it's got to be crazy.
Dude, remember watching
the-
Gargano versus Ciampa? Edge one time was like, "There's zero body fat in this ring."
Oh yeah, he's like between the two of them, there's 0% body fat right now.
Dude, that pod was awesome. Speaking of Edge and Christian, pod
I
of
missed
awesome,
the ENC pod.
pod of awesomeness. All right. So after the All Atlantic Championship match, we had Bullet Club, kind of reuniting the Bucks and El Fantasmo versus, and they were calling them the Dudes with Attitude, Sting, Darby, and Shingo Takagi. Sorry if I said it wrong.
All right.
The winners were Dudes with Attitudes. One thing, it was cool to see the Bucks wearing their Bullet Club gear again. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, that was sick.
That was really
A
cool.
little bit of a throwback.
It's cool to see all that. But yeah, what you think of the match?
I mean, I thought the coolest part was the beginning with Sting, because for anyone who hasn't seen it, the Bucks are making their entrance and the lights cut out, and then they show someone up in the stairwell or something up at the top, and it's like Sting.
The rafters.
Rafters, that's the word, yeah. And Sting.
Stairwell.
I don't know. And then they cut back to the entrance ramp, and he's on top of one of the entrance tunnels, and he jumps off. He's 63 years old, and he jumps off and crossbodies all of them. I'm like, this guy, he just got him back from an injury, and he's 63 and still doing this.
At one point, didn't they both super kick him, and he just took it and was just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, Jesus.
Sting is insane.
So what's
he's the man.
his whole situation? Because he got injured in WWE, right? And he had to retire because
Fucking Rollins, yeah.
Zack.
Buckle bomb.
But now he's back in wrestling. Why didn't he just stay with WWE? What made him jump to AEW? Did we know that?
Probably a similar
Yeah.
reason why some of the people before, they're cleared by doctors outside WWE, but then doctors won't in WWE seem to not clear them. Paige is cleared by other doctors, just not by WWE's doctors. There's I think there's a couple other people like that though that have been I've done test after test, but apparently WWE's doctors won't clear me. Danielson was cleared for a long time by other doctors outside WWE, so I would think it has something to do with that.
And then similar to Edge, too.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Make it
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. So our next match was Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. This match, I mean, I feel like with some of the other matches on the card, they were we gotta freaking deliver, and I thought they really did. I didn't think they really messed up at all, and if they did, they covered it up pretty well. Thunder Rosa ended up being the winner in the end. She again had some crazy gear. But the show signed respect to each other afterwards. Good match. Crowd was into it.
Yeah.
But I think
wish
the right person won. I do like Toni Storm, but I thought the right person won. Thunder Rosa still has
Thunder
other
Rosa
people to go for.
hasn't really had a good run so far. They haven't really put her on TV. I don't really understand why, but this was the first good title match that she's had so far. So hopefully they actually continue this now.
Yeah, her reign so far has been kind of hit or miss, I feel like, but this was very good. I don't know who could take it off of her. Maybe if Paige came in or someone, but because
Mercedes or Sasha Banks.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sasha Banks is free now. She definitely would be a believable person to beat her. Because what's Ember Moon's new name in AEW?
Athena.
Athena's going after Jade Cargill right now.
Yeah,
I know that. So That's not really in the cards. But I want to get into this next match because it blew my expectations out of the water. Will Ospreay versus Orange
best
Cassidy.
match.
Dude, this match was fucking awesome.
I want to see
real quick,
match so bad. I missed it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's so good.
Yeah. Bro, how do you feel about Orange Cassidy?
Such a dude. He's so chill, so nice. He is extremely gifted in the ring. My goodness. To do this he does, like with his hands in his pockets, wearing the shades, doing the whole thing. No, I love it. I enjoy that a lot. It's funny because like we were talking about Danhausen earlier, and it's similar in the like sense that they have these different like kind of character-y gimmicks, but it works, man. Cassidy, it just works.
Yeah, this match. Yeah, you gotta find time to find this match because it was fucking awesome. Will Ospreay won though, and afterwards, this crowd went off when Shibata comes out. Who Japanese legend retired in I think 2017, and he's been a coach at the LA New Japan dojo. But New Japan legend, people were freaking out, and then he goes. It's almost like, is he going to go have a feud with Will Ospreay because he retired, I think, from an injury. But then he gets in the ring, looks at Cassidy, Orange Cassidy, and Cassidy takes his glasses and puts them on Shibata. Big pop. So yeah, from here on out, I mean, the rest of the card was just like crazy match after crazy match. So,
but real quick about that match though, like I've never seen counters so smooth as those two.
It was. I mean, both guys are super good. Ospreay's, we all know is amazing. Orange Cassidy, I felt like Ospreay was really able to show what Orange Cassidy really, really could do.
Yeah.
It was great.
Tim, did you like that match? Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, really. But
Tim usually doesn't like Orange
really...
Cassidy matches, so.
I just. Put him up. What do you want me to say?
Well, you want to talk about
that was the best match on the card.
You want to talk about Jericho
it's
and
like,
him in the orange?
I think
juice
I think the thing with the for me it was like the pockets joke was funny like the first 30 times, but like now like, after I saw that match, I was like, holy shit! Like I'm blown away. Like
I wonder if he'll
wowed,
say anything about that match.
Which I think that's kind of the point, right? Like it's like now I'm starting to understand the character more. Where there's other old head wrestling fans who I don't think they even want to try to understand. But what it is I kind of get it now. It's like he can do all this stuff with his hands in his pockets. And then when he takes them out, it's like, oh, now he's like actually trying. And then it's like even crazier. So I kind of get it. You know, like I'm buying into the whole thing.
There you go.
I do agree.
Progress,
pockets. It's cool to see like that he can do it, but after however many times, it's like, all right, we got it.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not hating.
So our next
it's a good joke. It's just like, you wear it out after a while.
So our next match was Zack Sabre Jr. versus a handpicked opponent from Bryan Danielson, and this opponent will be the next member of the Blackpool Combat Club. Zack Sabre Jr. comes out. And then I don't know how the crowd knew right away because when the music hit, I was like, I don't know who this is.
Well, it had like the Swiss flag up on the screen.
Is that what it was? Okay. Well, it was Claudio Castagnoli, which formerly known as Cesaro, biggest
formerly known as Claudio Castagnoli.
Yes, again. Yes. So big pop, biggest pop of the night. I think it was rumored that he was going to be the guy because I think we had talked about it before. Yeah. Also, I always have liked him in WWE. I always thought that, maybe he didn't get pushed because of promo work or something. But I always say if you could go back and watch the pandemic match between him and Roman Reigns in the Thunderdome or whatever, it was very, very good at one of the pay-per-views. Always a great athlete, but yeah, this match was, I'm going to say the same thing for all the rest of these matches. It was fantastic. To technical. Crowd really wanted to see him do the swing. They were bummed when Sabre Jr. countered at one time, but then they finally got it. Winner was Claudio, though. As I think moving forward with AEW, it should have been. You don't want to have your new guy for your Blackpool Combat Club to lose in the first night.
Yeah,
it might not be good.
Yeah, just think about the Blackpool Combat Club right now.
It's a stacked team right now.
Yeah, Danielson, Claudio, Yuta, Moxley, and then you have Regal.
And then Regal,
it's insane. But I love these moments, especially for AEW pay-per-views. It's like when they sign these guys, like the pop that they get, and it's like you see their face and like the emotion that they have. It's like they're finally being themselves again. Like I know he loved being Cesaro
or getting the respect that they deserved.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, it's just like him, and then like I'm wearing like a Ruby Zoho shirt. Like when she came out and she was like almost in tears. I was like, these are like the moments I think I love more than anything else in AEW pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
No, those are the best wrestling moments.
Yeah.
Well, because it's real. That kind of emotion is kind of hard to hide.
Well, but it's like it's also nice when like, yeah, but it's cool when the fans have that opportunity to like give like a real appreciation to the performer, and the performer is like they know that that's what they're doing. Like it's kind of there's this moment happening where like it's special, and I think that's when you are a fan and you're watching. Those are like some of the coolest. Like when people are like, "Why do you like wrestling?" It's like that's the stuff that you can't describe. Like that's the stuff where like I can't tell you why. It's too many layers. Like,
yeah. Look, you either like it or you don't. Right? You're either fully in, is what I realized, or you're not in at all. There's no like really like I kind of like wrestling. I don't know.
Well, there's always that guy
it's never
too
been like that.
Well, there's always that guy.
I know Hulk Hogan.
Just,
like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, but there's always that guy though. You ever notice who's like, yeah, I used to watch growing up, and then like they like pretend they don't watch it anymore. They're like, yeah, you see Roman Reigns, and they're like, you see Kenny Omega, and I'm like, after a while, you're like, man, you kind of sound like you still watch it. Just throw that out there, but.
All right, so I'll get back on track. Our final two matches, we had Jay White versus Hangman Adam Page versus Okada versus Adam Cole. Fatal 4-way match for the IWGP World Title. This match, up until the ending, was fucking awesome. And I just sound like a broken record, just keep repeating. It was amazing. It was awesome. But it was. I mean, you got this much talent in one ring. How can you not? The winner was Jay White, though, after a weird finish. So what happened, because there's two times that, what happened is Cole got concussed, I believe. And what I think happened, he either got hurt on the drop kick or the move from Okada, or the move right after that, which is when he scoop slammed him. Because those moves were one after another. And then after that, Okada goes for his Rainmaker, and Cole just kind of like ducks and then just falls to his knees and hands. And Jay White gets in the ring, does his finisher, and then just covers Adam Cole after like not even doing a move. I don't know if that was planned. I don't know if Cole was supposed to kick out and forgot, and it just ended that way. But either way, doctors checked on Cole after the match. So, he apparently I don't think he had wrestled since the Owen Hart tournament.
Bro, also, what's going on in those moments in the ring where you realize another guy is knocked out?
A lot.
What's like the kind of the pro?
Yeah, going on, and it's like kind of what we were saying, right? The secret's out at this point, but there's so much communication that's taking place in that moment. Whether it's like with the referee who's got ears like to the back, who's actually sending production like notes like, "Hey, is he good? Can he like continue to go?" But then also like with each other, because if the performer's hurt, then it's like, "Oh shoot, I don't want to just like explode this guy's brains. Like, how are we going to fix this?" So it takes communication, but also somebody, if you have like a ring general in there who can actually, take over that moment and make sure like, all right, sure, something got flubbed up, but how do we keep this rolling, not make it obvious, and then just like take it home, let's get out of this match. So I don't know. In that moment,
Right.
too, it was kind of weird seeing Jay White. Who am I to say like you should have done this? But like he should have just pinned Okada because Cole didn't take a move. He was just there. But kind of to your point, Andy, maybe he was supposed to kick out. I'm not sure, but it was kind of.
Yeah, well, he did.
He looked like he kind of threw his shoulder up a little bit, but
not in the way, and not like in a working like, oh, this is like. He looks like he was about to, and Jay White was almost like, nah, bro, you're done. Like he like was like holding him down. And he was like, nah, dude, you're done.
But that was his hurt shoulder too, wasn't it? That was the shoulder that was like taped up and stuff. I believe his left one.
Yeah. I mean,
so
my
yeah,
only thinking was just that they didn't want Okada being pinned. That's the only reason I think that they didn't pin him.
But the crowd was kind of crowd was kind of let down, and then I think when something like that happens and you see the doctors in there, they're like, okay, then they're understandable. But in the moment, you're like, did we just get a shitty finish? And it was like supposed to be booked that way, and then when you realize it wasn't, it was like they had to call an audible. You're like, oh, okay, as a fan, you would think. But yeah, let's get into our main event. It was Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the interim AEW championship. This match was probably like a half an hour long, just about.
Yeah. Moxley was bleeding for 20 of it.
Yeah, Moxley was bleeding. He fucking cut himself or whatever after getting a sling blade done to him.
Yeah,
which I've never seen that in my life. I rewound. I was just like, when did he bleed? I was like, did I just think he started bleeding right after that? Like, he got the sling blade done, went out of the ring, went to the floor, and then he comes back in and he's gushing blood. I was like, you just did a sling blade. Seen Balor and AJ or Rollins do a bunch of fucking sling blades before. I've never seen anyone cut open for that. Yeah. He was bleeding his ass off. But I think we did predictions last week. We all thought Moxley was going to win. It makes sense being an AEW belt to put on an AEW guy. I don't think Tanahashi is going to be. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I don't think he's going to be wanting to fly back and forth. It's a long ass flight from Japan, back over here. But do you guys think Moxley will hold the belt till Punk comes back, and then we'll get Punk versus Moxley?
I hope so. I mean, this version of Jon Moxley against CM Punk, I think will be really good.
Well, we haven't had them in AEW together since both have been there. So,
and also the promos themselves are being worth it too.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts? What you guys think of the match as a whole? I mean, Tanahashi's great. I've never really watched his stuff. I've seen like clips here and there, but I think he wrestled Jericho a little while ago over in New Japan. Yeah, I saw stuff from that, but I know he's like
I feel
he's like the Bret Hart of New Japan.
And that's the thing. Like, I kind of wish I knew more, and I don't know if Bro knows a little bit more than I do about, and maybe he could give some insight, or Jeremy. But like, so at one point, a few years ago, probably more than a few now, Okada was like the guy, right? He was like the main guy
that we were watching,
right?
Kingdoms,
and he was like a god, like untouchable. So then, I'm assuming at some point in the last few years, him and Tanahashi have kind of like. Or Tanahashi has like gotten like bigger? Like, is that kind of like what's happened? Or is it like a Rock and Stone Cold kind of thing?
Sure.
Like,
to be honest with you, I don't really even watch New Japan as much as maybe I should. But yeah, I feel like Tanahashi's been around for a minute, and he's just kind of like, I don't know. He looks like he hasn't aged a day, which is incredible for him.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right. Like, it is kind of like ebbing and flowing. It's tough to make the comparison, but. Like to what you were saying, Tim, with like Rock and Austin, or throw Triple H into the mix. You have like some of these multiple top guys that are like able to swap in and out.
Yeah, they're like over there. What you have like Okada, Naito, Tanahashi, and then like Will Ospreay and Jay White shot up to like the top of the card. Both have been IWGP champ. I mean, Will Ospreay beat Okada to combine the titles, I believe.
Yeah. I just wish it was easier to watch New Japan over here.
Yeah.
Because you have to sign up for a bunch of things.
Was it New Japan?
Unless you stream it live online like I do. One thing I wanted to mention, though, that I didn't write down with this match is afterwards, everyone that's going to be involved in Blood and Guts on this Wednesday basically ran out and started attacking. And one thing I noticed, because we've talked about it before, Eddie Kingston does not like Claudio. At first I thought it was a work because they did have a feud, and I was like, is Eddie Kingston doing like kayfabe? Like back in Shikara, they had a big feud, and I looked up more about that. But then I found a separate interview with Eddie Kingston that was recently, and he's like, basically, you want to know the real shit? Like, before Cesaro left Shikara to go to WWE, he refused to put Eddie over, apparently. So there is real heat. But afterwards, like, Eddie's looking up in the ring at Claudio, and Moxley's just, like, sitting right next to him, and he's basically like, fuck you, motherfucker. And Claudio, like, yells something back, and Moxley's just sitting there, like, smiling, like, what the fuck? So it'll be interesting, Eddie not liking Claudio, Moxley being friends with him, used to ride together in NXT and is now part of this group. It'll be interesting if we see, like, they, mix it into storyline, Moxley having to get between Claudio and Eddie, kind of thing. Because apparently that was a really big feud in Shikara, and one of the main ones at some time, from what I read. I think in the end, like, Eddie was telling everyone that, he's not a good guy, like his character, and then he ended up turning and went to part of some group, the DBK or something like that, I think it was called.
I feel really, a few weeks ago, and this is how, to make a long story short, this is how we wound up getting Bro on the show, is he came into the barbershop I worked at to get trimmed up, and he started hearing us talking about wrestling and, kind of take it from there. You get some wrestling fans around each other, all of a sudden conversation becomes pretty easy. But so I'm cutting this dude's hair, and I had no idea who he was, and I'm asking him, I'm talking about, like, the weather and, like, generic shit with him. And then after he leaves,
the weather,
my
terrible conversation, dude.
You're right. I'm like, hey man, what's going on? It's nice out, right, bro?
Go for a walk today, man.
Yeah, dude. So he leaves, and my boss goes, hey, how was that? And I was like, what do you mean? And then he's like, dude, you didn't talk to him? And I was like, about what? And he's like, that was like the guy who like ran Shikara for like fucking like 20, like however many years it's been around. He's like done all the behind the scenes stuff. He always has like the coolest stories. And he's like, you didn't ask him anything? And I was like, no, literally nothing. We didn't even talk about wrestling at all.
My God, like, missed opportunity.
I know.
I
know.
Was it Mike?
Yeah. He like came in. Yeah, I cut his hair, and like I didn't even ask him anything. We didn't even talk about wrestling once. So funny. Like,
Jesus.
I know.
Hopefully he'll come in again.
It was wild.
I don't know.
Because bro, they do they do all kinds of stuff in Pennsylvania, right?
Well,
isn't that they used to?
Yeah. So I mean, it's an interesting situation with Shikara now because they used to do a ton, and they would sell places out. Like, I remember a few years back, they had like Bullet Club when it was AJ and the Young Bucks versus whatever that British group is with like Trent Seven, Tyler Bate, and then whoever else. Like, that was a Shikara match, which is incredible to think about. But yeah, during the quarantine, I guess there was a what was it? Not Me Too, but like Speaking Out movement. And some stuff.
Right.
I don't want to bring up this can of worms again, but yeah, some stuff came out about Shikara, so they just haven't really been doing much anymore.
Yeah, I will say like it's interesting that you say that because like we'll get into like the behind the scenes and like a little bit of the drama, like Andy just touched on the whole Eddie Kingston.
That dude hates everyone
stuff.
Apparently. So,
But a lot of the times we don't even know we don't even know any of that stuff. And so it's like interesting to hear that like there's even more crazy stuff that goes on. But yeah, over the years, Shikara's been I'm sure it's like you have no idea. But Shikara's something I used to watch, especially back in like, I think in 2010 I got really into the indies. I started watching like PWG and Ring of Honor when they were doing like internet pay-per-views, and Shikara was around. And at the time, from what I remember, it was more like family-based, kind of like PG kind of stuff. There was like superheroes and stuff. Like I barely remember it.
It's like a live action.
I vaguely. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
it was cool though.
Oh, yeah.
It was a cool idea. Yeah. All right, Andy. What else we got? Is that
wraps up
main
Dynamite, or not Dynamite? That wraps up Forbidden Door. That's usually how we get to the end. That wrapped up Forbidden Door. One good thing I want to say about this pay-per-view is, we were talking about we don't know too much about some of the New Japan stuff nowadays. I think we did a couple years ago when you, me, Tim, or at least were watching it a lot more.
Well, I used to have the membership, and I would stay up and this is especially when the Bullet Club thing was like, dude, like a total mark. I mean, I got a Bullet Club tattoo on my wrist, dude. Like when that whole thing was going on, I was like super obsessed with it. So yeah. So a few years ago, you and I were really up to date, and then it's weird. Once Jay White became like the guy and all the other dudes left and started AEW, like I feel like we kind of like just went with AEW.
We really were watching for that whole group. I mean, you started watching when AJ was the leader, and then you kind of were like, oh, they're making this shit like really cool. And then I think we followed the group, and the group of guys like Cody and Hangman and all them more than the company.
Marty
more than the company itself. So we followed where they went, and then
it
goes from there. But what I'm saying about this pay-per-view is that it gives the viewers on both sides, if they don't know too much or about the company or some of the guys, now it gives puts eyes on it all. And if this becomes an annual event, or as guys come over to AEW for like Dynamites, or if guys go over there, everyone gets to get a little taste and get more familiarized with these guys and girls. But yeah, that wrapped up Forbidden Door. I thought it was an awesome pay-per-view, really fun. But yeah, we can, if you want, we can get into talking with Bro some more.
So yeah, this is a special edition episode. Normally we wrap up the show here and we'll like shout out the social media and say talk to you guys next week, blah blah blah. But this week we have special guest Breaux Keller, who's been with us the whole show, and he's been helping us review the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And I thought it'd be fun to end by talking to him about his love for wrestling, his career, what the things he's gotten to do so far. So I have a couple of things written down, and I think, in these type of things, it's always easier just to kind of start in the beginning. Do you have like a particular memory? I know I do personally. Some of these guys do too. But do you have a particular memory of pro wrestling that sticks out to you when you were like a kid? Like maybe it's the first time you ever remember realizing what it was, or the moment when you were like, I need to do this, whatever this is, and please feel free to just tell us, and I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, by all means. So when you ask that, the first thing that jumps into my mind was my brother. I have an older brother, and he's 9 years older than me. So he was kind of like in high school, and this is like prime time Monday Night Wars. Wrestling was in its heyday, and it was like pop culture, like a phenomenon. And he would always flip back and forth between Raw and Nitro. If one went to commercial, he jumped to the other. If this one was on a commercial, he jumped back to the first. So I remember specifically watching with him. And even more specific than that, if one show was like, I don't know, maybe doing a promo or some backstage segment, he just never had any time for that. He's like, get the shit out of here. I want to see the wrestling. So then he would flip on that one then too. But I was like, no, right. I want to see that stuff. That's so cool. So like when you ask about like initial memories, that's immediately what jumps into my mind.
Yeah. No, I love that. Andy and I'm his older brother. He's my younger brother, obviously. I don't know if that could work another way. But we kind of the same thing. Like he always liked kind of the storyline stuff, and I always just kind of wanted to see, like, my favorite wrestler was always Shawn Michaels, and it was always because the matches, right? But then I remember we both liked the storyline stuff, but I think Andy appreciated it a little bit more than me. So all the backstage stuff and like the intricacies.
You got to get me interested. You got to get me invested. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
right.
You got to get me invested in it. You got to get me to care. If I don't care, I don't give a shit. I mean, I respect just pure wrestling. I respect pure wrestling. I know what like a good match looks like, but when I know what's going on and I know the stakes behind it, it's a little different.
There's layers to this.
I feel it. Is there a particular wrestler that you grew up like idolizing, or who was your favorite, or a couple guys that come off the top of your head that were big inspirations? Oh, I can't wait to
Not
hear.
really the inspiration part, but I will say, you're going to think I'm joking, but my dude was Buff Bagwell, and I was obsessed with him because he was
Dude, he's got the stuff.
Exactly.
Buff's got the stuff, man.
Exactly. He's not just buff. He's not just tough, but he's got the stuff. So, I mean, Buff Bagwell was my guy. I loved him growing up. But then on the flip side of that, like somebody that you would think is maybe more serious of an answer, I don't know. I was kind of basic because I love Goldberg. I love Sting. I do a Stinger Splash in my matches now. And even Undertaker, he was huge for me too. I have his action figures and everything. So obviously there's the Stone Colds of the world, but that's too easy. But yeah, a lot of those guys, and Buff Bagwell.
Sure. I think Buff Bagwell's a great answer because he's underrated in the way that, look, he wasn't out there putting on Meltzer 5-star bangers. He was just out there with 100% charisma and personality, and people love that dude.
Mm-hmm.
My dad knew who Buff Bagwell was, and he didn't know anything about wrestling.
See,
right?
I love that.
I don't know how he knew who he was, but
Now, you mentioned Sting. Did you get to meet Sting when you have worked for AEW?
Yeah, well, I saw him at AEW. I didn't actually meet him there. I did a show for MCW as well, and that was actually where I initially had the chance to meet him. Super cool dude.
Was that kind of surreal?
It kind of was. I mean, it's so weird because there's this fine line that you have to kind of balance where it's like, I'm a professional and we're in this together, and I don't want to just be like this fanboy. Because if you really think about it, technically we're peers. We're like coworkers in some regards, in some aspects. So you kind of like still want to, give them their flowers, pay them respect, and kind of just, hey man, I loved you growing up. Blah, blah, you were awesome. But then also
the older generation knows. They're like, all these guys fucking watched me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
what is the modern day rule etiquette as far as, because I wish it was more visual. Literally, it's kind of sick, like sick and not a good way. I have like 100 wrestling books of biographies and autobiographies and history stuff and just crazy stuff. So what is the current day etiquette of locker room handshakes? Is that still a thing? Is that not as much of a thing anymore? Or is it like, he didn't shake my hand, he's a fucking disrespectful asshole? Is that like at all still a thing?
See, all right. I'm glad you asked that because I have a very particular answer on this. Some people are so over the top and weird about it. Like, oh, this motherfucker didn't shake my hand, bro. It's like, dude, get off me. You know what? Like, what does it matter? As long as you at least like say hi, you're cordial, get a head nod. Fist bumps are huge nowadays after COVID, but it's like, come on, what does it matter? We're all here. We're saying hello. We're bumping into each other. I didn't shake your hand. Big whoop. That just drives me nuts.
Right.
I appreciate the idea about it and being respectful, but if you don't have to shake like all 38 people's hand, like, and then they're backstage with you. So it's like, let's go.
Right. And doesn't what I always thought when I was a kid, because when I was a kid, I kind of enjoy just being a fan now and like kind of like analyzing respectfully, I always like to say, because I never like to act like that football fan, like, dude, like you go up to the quarterback, you're like, you know what you should have done, and the quarterback's like, yeah, you fucking tell me what I should have done, because but I it was like one of those things where I always wondered, wouldn't it be strange or fake seeming to do the same thing every single day, like to go in and you shake the guy's hand and you're like, yeah, we just did this yesterday. And then like, you're like, hey man, great to see. And you're like, yeah, dude, like literally we just did this. Like, doesn't that seem like a little like try hard? I don't know. That like, but maybe that's just the way it was at one point.
Well, especially at that level. I mean, you are right because, and I think I've even heard, I've talked to a couple people where they're just like, no, as long as you're just like, hey, what's up? Like, I just saw, like, to your point, I just saw you yesterday. No big deal. It's like nobody really cares anymore. But the people that do, it's like, come on. You got nothing better to complain about right now?
Are they usually older?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And if they're not, then they were trained by some old school wrestler, which, again, I get it.
Okay.
I appreciate the respect value of it, but sometimes it's like other more important things you could probably complain about.
Well, it's like I remember hearing a story that Matt Riddle, like Randy didn't like him at first because I don't think he like shook his hand or said what's up to him or something. And Randy's, he's on the younger side of some of the, people out there, but he was like taught and was around like legends like, Triple H and Ric Flair and stuff. So he probably, and his dad and grandfather
was dad. Yeah,
exactly.
So it's like you said, bro, it's like you either were trained or you were around that's just the thing. That's like, yeah.
Was it like that for backstage at AEW at all? Because I always hear about AEW, like it's different.
It is different. Well, all right. So that's another thing too.
If you can say something.
Yeah. Oh, totally. In my own experiences, I feel like you keep seeing all these articles and on the media and whatnot, where it's like WWE super toxic background or super toxic backstage, I should say. Everybody's like on edge, walking on eggshells. I mean, to a degree, it's kind of similar to AEW too, because, I mean, just think about it. Like, everybody there is competing for the same job. You all want to be the best. You all, like, there is going to be tension naturally. And, I mean, I think it's, like, you can almost feel it when you're walking around, and especially the guys that go and girls that aren't signed, like, we go to do extra work or we go to be enhancement talent, whatever it might be. Like, especially for us, we're super walking on eggshells, just making sure, like, don't want to piss him off. Who knows? Like, maybe I will never get a chance here again, or I don't want to disrupt the wrong person. So I don't know. There's that same level of tension in the air from everything I've ever done and felt and experienced. So I don't know. Maybe if you're there on a regular basis and you have a contract week in, week out, you're getting paid, it could be different. But anything I've seen, it's kind of been not toxic, but there is still that, it's palpable in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were talking about locker room etiquette and different things backstage, and kind of that old mentality versus just people being more relaxed. Who, if you feel comfortable saying, who actually trained you and brought you into the business, and how was that experience for you? How old were you and all that stuff?
Yeah, very comfortable telling you that. Twisted Tate. He's my dude. He ran Atomic Championship Wrestling out of Denver, Pennsylvania. And living downtown, I was probably about, I don't know, half an hour away, 25 minutes. So it was a nice commute getting there. But yeah, interestingly enough, I had gone to college, played football, ran track. I graduated, and I just figured, hey, you know what? Now I got to go to the real world, start my life, be a business person, whatever. And that's kind of what I did for a couple of years. And I realized, I still kind of have this itch. There was like a natural, I don't know, I have like a naturally competitive nature within me, which is why I was able to, compete athletically at school. But yeah, I was like playing softball, like in rec leagues around here. I was playing indoor football, flag football over at Spooky Nook. And I knew there was something more. Like I needed something a little bit more than just kind of some of these sports. So my other brother, actually, he was dating a wrestler, Jamie Senegal, if you guys are familiar at all, another indie wrestler.
That sounds very familiar to me. I can't say anything in particular, but I feel like I've heard that name. Maybe on a flyer or something. I'm not sure.
You very well might have. And we wrestled each other a couple times too. But Yeah, before I even got into the business, my brother and I were having a campfire in the backyard, and I mentioned something to him. I forget exactly like what I said, but he was like, "Oh, I'll hit up Jamie right now." And I was like, "You don't got to do all that." But then he was like, "Oh, too late, already did." So I was like, "Huh, okay, well, let's see what happens." And maybe 5 minutes later, I get a message on my phone then saying, "Hey, we're training tomorrow. I'll see you at 5." So I kind of didn't really have a choice. I was like, I'm not just going to blow this person off. Like, I kind of got to go, right?
Right.
So that's exactly what I did. The next day, I got to Twisted Tate's house, and there was a barn with the ring in it. Caveat, though, ring was not put together. So we had to set up the ring. I learned instantly what actually goes into putting a ring together. Putting the steel frame together, dropping the boards on top of that, tightening the ropes. And that's a lot of what, wrestlers nowadays don't know either, is how to actually set up a ring. So I was definitely paying my dues right off the bat.
So when you get there and you're setting up the ring, as you're putting the pieces together of the ring and you're realizing what a professional wrestling ring is actually made out of for the first time, did it kind of hit you like, oh yeah, this is going to hurt? Yeah, like you knew at least it wasn't gonna feel great,
Dude, honestly, yeah, because I'm watching, we're putting these like steel corners together, and then just steel siding, and then just bars of steel running across. I was like, all right, okay, and then, let's get some wood now. Let's layer that with wood. All right, okay, maybe like a 3/4 of an inch thick pad to go right on top. Like, okay, here we are. And it was also one of those things, too, like, while I'm setting up, I'm like, what am I getting myself into? Like, is this something I want to do? So there were, like, a lot of different thoughts racing through my mind in that moment. But I'm glad I did it.
Is it true what they say about that first bump? The first one you take is just like,
I was about to ask that same question. How was your first bump?
Honestly, it wasn't that bad. They kind of babied me into it. So... Like, okay, I forget who it was. Somebody got like on all fours, and you just take like a flat back bump. They got on all fours, like right behind me, almost when you play that prank with your friends, you like push them over. That was essentially what we did. They like got down. I really kind of just like sat on his back, and boop, just fell over. And I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad. But then it's weird. Like the stigma should be like the 7th or 8th bump, because then once I got comfortable with it, I was like, nah, get out of here. I don't need you down there anymore. And then I did it on my own. My head was rocking. It was not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I read in, well, I'm sure he said it in different interviews too, but I remember in Edge's book saying that his first bump was somebody gave him like a classic, old school scoop body slam. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he hit the ground, he got the wind knocked out of him, and he could hear everybody kind of or he could see everybody like kind of snickering, being like, he's not going to get back up. And that he like literally had to like pull himself back up, because he knew if he didn't, that they would all be like, oh, this guy is like, he's not tough enough to do this type of thing.
Yep.
And he's like, dude, I couldn't breathe. I was dizzy. I was like, man, that sounds brutal.
It is. It really is. Especially you see some of the bumps people take nowadays. Like we mentioned him earlier, Jack Evans. He was doing that like a 630 or something, and landed like on his neck, shoulders. I was overwhelmed just watching that. And you see a lot of this crazy stuff people are doing, and it's not necessary. I will say that. It's cool to see when it all works out, but my goodness, man, some of the things that people do, it's like you got to cringe a little bit.
It's kind of like when they take the bumps on the aprons on the side.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever taken that?
I certainly have. I've taken those. I will say, though, I'm sounding like a hypocrite because it was my idea to do a couple of them. So here we
are. What is, and obviously we don't condone this because, definitely don't want to do that. But, when Andy and I were kids and we would like wrestle around the house, we're having fun. We did have one rule. Our only rule, besides like the obvious, like, don't like, actually like try to kill me or anything like that. But no, like turning me upside down or me turning you upside down to do any sort of like pile driver maneuvers. We knew that if that went wrong, that would just like crush our mom's soul. So we just like always stayed away from that stuff.
Yep.
The first time that somebody was like, okay, we're doing Jerry Lawler pile driver class, like how does that work? Like it's got to be terrifying, you know?
It definitely is, and that's the thing. Like certain wrestling schools, they kind of have different, I don't know, programs, and none of the places that I've trained did we ever have like a pile driver safety course. It's always like anytime I've taken one, it's just been with somebody that I super trust, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna take care of me. You take care of me. Okay, cool. And I always have like the second right when I'm lifted up where it's like, oh shit. And then it happens, and then thankfully you make it through, but every single time it never ceases to fail where it's just like, all right, my life might be flashing before my eyes here.
Dude, man. I always thought when I was a kid, I was like, I want to be a wrestler, but is there any way I just like don't have to do the pile driver or take the pile driver? I'm like, can I do everything but that one?
Mm-hmm.
I would be that dude in the back putting the match together. It would be like, oh man, last night kind of tweaked my neck. Maybe I can't do the pile driver tonight. Like, I'll always have an excuse. I'll have the excuse to get out of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you got to be comfortable saying like, nah, it's not for me, dog.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure, and in all seriousness, I'm sure all the time, like people that are new are intimidated. Like maybe somebody they look up to is like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And they're like, "Yes," but maybe I don't know. Do you think that's something that happens where that they're going to take care of you because they've been doing this for 20 some years, but it's like, man, I don't know if I really want to do this, but you feel like you kind of almost have to. I don't know if that's like culturally a thing at all that you've seen or.
No, dude, you're spot on. And it's a fact. I've seen that, like I've witnessed that moment. And I actually talked somebody out of taking a move just because to what you're saying, like there may be a lot of times it's newer people who haven't done it or they are a little intimidated by it, which, I mean, you're in the wrestling industry. So you kind of have to be a little, I don't know, have a little screw loose upstairs just because, what we're doing, just the nature of it. But sometimes, some moves just really intimidate people. And this one guy, he was pretty fresh in the industry, maybe a year in max. And somebody wanted to do a move with him. I think it was a Canadian Destroyer, honestly. And you could tell in his tone, and he was like, I don't know. And even me, I'm not saying I'm a vet by any means, but I was the champion of the company. I was just like, hey, man, I honestly don't think he's feeling it. If you got anything else you can hit him with, I'm sure he would appreciate that. And thankfully, they went through and didn't do the move. But to your point, right. It does happen where some people are just like, I'd rather not, but I kind of feel like I have to.
Is the uncertainty and the second guessing usually also where people do get injured? Where on that last second they question, do I really want to do this? And that's when like the mistakes happen. Is it like you almost like you flinch up kind of thing? Or, I mean, I don't know. Everything I've ever read is when the doubt creeps in, that's when accidents happen.
Yeah, it causes hesitation.
When you start second guessing stuff.
Andy, you said
right.
That's exactly what it is. There's that moment.
You hesitate.
Mm-hmm. If you hesitate, like, it takes the flow off and it messes up the rhythm of what you're doing. So, especially nowadays, like what we're saying, kind of keeping the theme here with these athletic maneuvers that everybody's doing and all of these wild stunts that you're seeing in the ring, it's overwhelming. And if there is a moment where you're like, shit, that sounded cool on paper, but I don't know if this is going to happen. If you do have that doubt and then there is that hesitation, then the timing's off and something goes awry. So it's either something you have to, in advance, just know like, no, I'm not even going to put myself in that scenario, and I'm just going to say no thanks right off the bat. Or, if you're feeling it in the match, maybe you get hurt in another move. It's like, I can't do this. It's not going to happen. You got to tell your opponent. You got to adjust. But, yeah, it's scary when that happens. I've kind of been on the receiving end of it, but for the most part, thankfully not.
Yeah. My to lighten the mood with something like that, I will say my favorite, just being a big podcast listener, my favorite story I've ever heard like that is something was wrong. Matt Cardona was telling a story that he had something wrong with his knee or like his tailbone or something like that, and Gallows wanted to give him an atomic drop, like 1980s, like very simple, like the most like chill move that you can give somebody. And he was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm feeling that one tonight. And like, and Gallows is like, are you kidding? And he's like, dude, it's like the easiest move possible. And he's like, I don't know, man. He's like, my knee's a little tweaked or something like that.
Goodness.
And I don't know, that story always made me crack up because apparently Gallows was like, you got to be kidding me. But yeah, man. So how did you come up? You know, you get into the business, you get trained. How did you come up with, or was your character originally given to you, or how many gimmicks did you go through before you came to the Shockzilla character? How did this come about?
So it's been pretty much, I don't want to say the same, but I mean, the name I came up with on my own, that was kind of like that business world I was talking about. Everybody in the office, they kept calling me like a bro. They're like, dude, you're such a bro. You're such a bro. And I always like despised like frat bros throughout college. And then even after college, like, these freaking guys. So that when they would say that to me, I was like offended by it. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not a bro. But
right.
Yeah, it got to a point where I was like, you know what? Heck it. I'm just going to make it my freaking gimmick. So I went with the name Bro, but obviously I added a little twist to it with the EAUX, trying to make it cool, have some flair, stand out a bit. But then, yeah, like even through doing that, like also, by the way, Keller just had a good ring to it. I have no idea where that came from. It just sounded like it worked. But
no, it does. It sounds good.
See, thank you. All right, that's reassuring to hear.
Until you go to WWE and then Vince McMahon decides that it's just Bro, and then you don't have Keller anymore. You just have one. Just one.
It's gonna go the other way. They're gonna call me Keller, and they're gonna drop the Bro because of freaking Riddle.
You're just gonna be Keller. Yeah,
exactly.
There you go.
But yeah, even with that, like just kind of as I was finding myself, like having these matches, just how my energy was in the ring, and like I watch it back, or when I'm watching it with my coach and whatnot, it's just kind of like, oh, you have this vibrancy about you. There's this effervescence in there. So it's like, let's just try to like dive into that a little bit more. And all good wrestlers are like themselves cranked up to 10. That's what Stone Cold says all the time. That's really just what I try to do. I was like, okay, well then let's take those little traits that you were mentioning and let's crank them up to 10. So yeah, it started off with Jockzilla, and then I realized like, I carry a lot of energy throughout these matches. So all energy right here. And then just since then, it's just kind of been
all energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what promotion? I don't know if you have like a main one that you're currently working for, but while you're traveling the indies and doing these things, what are your favorite and main promotions that you normally work for, and what titles, if you can remember them all, do you currently hold? Well,
I have this one. I don't know if you can see it back there.
Yeah, there we go.
Baby, that's with
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's actually like the nicest belt I've ever had. Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling, PPW. They're up in Broadheadsville now, and they're a pretty sweet promotion. They always bring in a lot of like names, if you will, which is pretty cool. You get to be around a lot of these guys and girls that have, been to the E or been in AEW, and they're kind of doing these offshoot indie promotions, or they're not in WWE anymore. So now it's like, hey, I'm just hitting the indies and making my rounds. But they're an awesome promotion. Anthony and Paul over there, they take care of me. They're good people. I always appreciate working there. And being their champion. I just wrestled Facade, a couple weeks ago, and threw him like through chairs from the top rope. It was silly. Again, all the shit that I'm saying, you don't need to do. And then, of course, we go out and do it. But yeah, I do enjoy working with them. I just mentioned a little bit ago, I'll be wrestling Jack Evans. That's down at MCW, Maryland Championship Wrestling. So, I mean, they're two probably the...
What? You know what?
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, what's the date of that show? Because Jeremy, Andy, and I actually all grew up in that town. It's the same county that we grew up in Maryland.
Hey.
So we'd love to come. Yeah, we'd love to come see you wrestle there, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
we go all the time.
Yeah, I live in Bel Air right now, like 15 minutes away from Joppa.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we all grew up there, so
Yeah.
we'll just come right over to the Joppa market to see the show. That'd be cool.
Oh, we got to make that happen. July 23rd. This is for everybody watching. MCW, July 23rd. It's the Shamrock Cup, which is kind of like their, I don't want to say WrestleMania, but I mean, kind of is. It's like a tournament style. Everybody has a first round, and then they advance to the finals, and it's kind of like a scramble match for the finals to be the Shamrock champion. But yeah, I love working there and PPW. But then also, I mean, doing a lot of these different shows I've been doing, especially recently, I just kind of gotten into this brewery kick. So every show I can find that's at a brewery, I'm taking that. So if a book it,
That sounds awesome.
yeah, it's amazing. I love it. I did like a distillery too about a month or so ago. But yeah, there's so many different places and so many unique settings. That's what makes independent wrestling so much fun.
Are there
So, I
any?
just
And
wanna
I'm
ask-
going to leave. No, yeah, Jeremy, you go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to ask one more thing, just because you showed us the title. So I always know that whenever you win a title, you also you have to take it everywhere with you, then, right? Because they give it to you, and it's like you have to hold on to it. So like you have to bring it to every single show, then.
Kind of. So I think that happens more often. I don't know. Actually, that's a really good question because, like, for me, I have this title, but I kind of get a little irked when I go on these different shows and every match has a title from all over the place, and it's like, all right, well,
Yeah.
like, what kind of zest is this adding to the show, if any? So for the most part, unless there's some sort of partnership or if the promoters are in communication with each other, I normally try to keep the title with the company or the promotion that it's a part of.
Yeah.
And another kind of like side fact on that is not all companies let you take the belt with you. So I've had like multiple championships. But this is really like the only one I've ever brought home, but they trust me with it.
Oh.
They made me their champion for a reason, right? So it's like, why don't you let me take this bad boy home? I'll take pictures, do photo shoots with it. I'll put this thing over.
Yeah, put it in the fridge. Put it in the fridge, CM Punk style. Yeah, man. Yeah, you got it, dude. No, I love that. I was trying to remember what I was going to ask right before Jeremy had his question. I mean, it was nothing like too imperative, but I was going to. Oh yeah, what is like the best? Okay, what's the best advice that you've ever got from a veteran in the business?
I literally was about to ask this question, by the way.
Dang.
But also, you don't have to use their name or anything. But what is the worst advice, and something that you've been like, all right, well, I'm never talking to that guy again. That sucked, or something like that.
The latter, honestly, I don't know if I've never really gotten bad advice per se. I will
Okay.
add to that wrestling is so interesting because every vet kind of thinks that their way is the way, which is just so, again, I respect where they came from, everything that they've put forth, what's worked for them maybe, whatever the case may be. However, there's no one way to do it. There's so many different styles and variations and types of wrestling that certain advice, when people say one thing, it's like, well, for example, I had a guy say to me once, he's like, why are you doing like the whole indie wrestling thing? Like, you're out there, you're high-fiving the crowd. And my immediate thought was like, well, I'm on an indie show, so that's probably
Right.
But then also they made the point where it was like, these people in the front row were just really, in general, you're giving them high fives, but it's like, why? You want to stand out, you want to be the star, and you don't want to be so accessible, which again, I understand, and it's a good point. Like, if I am supposed to be this superstar wrestler, they shouldn't so easily be able to touch me or give me a high five. But then my counter to that was like, let's say you go to a Beyonce concert. She's on the microphone. She's reaching out to all the people in the front row, and they're giving her high fives and grabbing her arm and whatnot. So it's like, in my opinion, I get where they're coming from, but there's more than one way to do something. And I appreciate when somebody gives me that advice, but I just don't always appreciate when it's like, this is how it's supposed to be done. There's ways of doing it.
And then, is there any advice that sticks out to you from somebody that you met that you either like respect or looked up to that you're like, man, I'm real, like anything in particular that you're like, man, I'm really going to carry this with me? Or do you think, just and again, we might edit this out, but the making them wait part was that the good advice?
That really was. And honestly, it's something that, I carry with me to a lot of shows. And in a weird way, it's just, there's so much depth from a psychological aspect as to how these wrestling shows and even on a more micro level, these matches work. So even if it is like, if they're cognizant of it or if it's in their subconscious, when you are making somebody wait for anything, if you're in line for a new iPhone, if you're at a concert, if you're at a wrestling show and you want to see somebody, there's that level of anticipation that builds and builds and builds and builds. And then once it finally happens, you get that payoff. It's like, oh, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. And no pun intended, but like the energy is just there and it breaks through. So I think that would be the best piece of advice.
Right. Do you notice that, working the indies, like you see guys in different phases of their careers? Like, for instance, you want to like progress further and keep doing more, and you're a young guy. So you're taking in these bits of advice and you're really like keeping this in mind, and you're like, all right, I'm bringing this with me as I advance over my career. Do you ever, are there guys on these shows that, maybe they're just having fun? Like, they're like, look, this is just what I do on the weekends. Like, I'm not trying to get to AEW. I just love pro wrestling. Do you ever meet any of those type of guys?
Oh, everybody, you name it. I've seen some people that wrestle maybe 6 times a year, some people that are wrestling 6 times a weekend. I mean, it's the entire gamut, like up and down the, like some guys, they work with one promotion and that's it. And they have their one show a month and that's all they do. And it's just kind of their hobby is what I would call it. And again, if that's somebody's mission, I respect that. But the one thing that kind of, makes my skin crawl is when people do that. They have that one show a month with the one promotion, but they are like, oh, AEW, they're going to see my footage, or WWE, they're going to call me up to NXT. It's going to happen. It's like, well, you got to adjust your diet. You got to train more. You got to practice, and you got to work more than once a month with the same promotion. So it's like, even that, like, that's more advice too, is like getting on the roads, like debuting at different companies. I've been really trying to do that a lot this year because I kind of got into a bit of a rhythm. And now that I've, worked a couple, I don't know, I'll say bigger names, it's just kind of nice to put on my resume and hopefully get noticed by other like bigger independent promotions too. So there's definitely an array of different personalities and different types of motivation across these indie shows.
Yeah, one of my favorite movies of all time is the documentary Beyond the Mat, which I saw probably when I was way too young. It was probably totally inappropriate for me to watch it, especially Jake the Snake like doing crack in the motel room. But I do love that movie, and one of the Barry, I think his name's Barry something. I think that's the guy who made the movie. But he says, he's like, on these indie shows, it's, as sometimes depending on what you see, it's as far down as you can go before starting over, or it's something really great where it's like, it's an indie promotion, but they do a really good job, and it's well run, and it's and all those things. Do you have, you said PPW and MCW, any others anywhere else that you have really enjoyed working for?
Yeah, sorry, I got to plug my phone in here quick.
Oh no, you're fine.
No, there's a lot. Like, especially, I was fortunate enough to. We even mentioned Shikara. Unfortunately, they're in a weird position now. I don't know the entire story there. I don't know what all happened. I just know some people had issues with other people. And I mean, no disrespect. I don't want to lighten what it was that happened or take away from whoever experienced it.
Right.
However,
For sure.
my personal experience was great there, and I really enjoyed working with them. They did a cool show once where it was like at the Harrisburg Senators Stadium, which was pretty fun. So that was kind of neat. But I mean, it's also just really nice to just explore different areas and go to different shows. Like I wrestled down in Georgia a few months ago, which was a lot of fun. That was like it was through BEW, which is British Empire Wrestling. They had some sort of U.S. connection, so they ran a show, which was a lot of fun. And that was through Casey Dillon. She runs the Belladonna division as well. Even on that, I got a freaking hilarious story I'll have to tell you guys at some point about that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, just getting out exploring, like Beyond Wrestling. I'd love to go back and work with them because that was a lot of fun up in Massachusetts. That's obviously one of like the bigger independent shows that's run. I was just talking to my opponent this past weekend. Like I mentioned, I was at a brewery in middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, Mifflinburg, and it was a blast and a half. There were like 200 people there, just boozing up, having so much fun, yelling their faces off. So it's random stuff like that. And the point I was going to make there was my opponent was saying, hey, like VCW down in Virginia, like they run a pretty good program, so you should try to work with them. Action Wrestling down in Georgia, they were always a blast. I love working with those guys. Matt Griffin, awesome promoter. So yeah, I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. My buddies, Savage Gentleman, Victor Benjamin, him and Lady Frost, his wife, they have a promotion out in Pittsburgh too, Wrestle Pit. It doesn't run too frequently, but when they do, the venue was sick. It had an awesome atmosphere, so much fun. So again, I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, Atomic Championship Wrestling through Twisted Tate, they gave me my big break. It actually gave me the time of day for me to debut. And then, you know, there's other promotions just like that, SWO over in York. So, I mean, there's a lot of places that I just love to work with.
Have you ever wrestled for the Delta Wrestling Alliance in Pennsylvania?
No, I can't say I'm familiar.
It's a little. I live in a little tiny farm town down here, and I see flyers for it. So I just was curious.
Oh, I'm curious now too myself.
Dude, we should go to a show. I think it would be funny just to people watch, see what's going on there. Before we wrap up here, is there any promotions? And obviously, you know, don't say their name, but is there any time that you've showed up to a venue? And I know I used to play in bands, and we've showed up places, and we're like, "What the fuck? I can't believe we're actually going to play here." Like, is there any funny stories off the top of your head of like a place that you showed up? You're like, "We're going to wrestle in front of people here."
All right, so a similar take. I never really walked into a building and I was like, "Oh, this is what we're doing." Because for the most part, they're able to finagle it in a way where it's at least presentable. However, I did do a match once, and I kid you not, this is part of the rough edges of professional wrestling when you're trying to cut your teeth. 11 people. There were 11 people in the audience, and that was it. This wasn't like a practice match. This wasn't training. This was a show that people paid for, and there were 11 humans watching us. And again, I appreciate those 11 humans. We went after it to keep them entertained because they did pay tickets and they deserve a good match. However, going into it, I was just like, that's it? This is what we're... all right, let's do it.
Now, I'm only telling this story. I'll close on my end with this story because I have a friend who became a professional wrestler, and I think he does it full time. No disrespect to him about that. But his wrestling name is Jason Drake. Have you ever met him?
Yeah, absolutely. I've met him like quite a few times. I guess we.
Yeah. So his real name's Logan. His shoot name's Logan, and he's an old friend of mine. When I used to play music, our bands used to play together. Well, we went and saw him perform at this show. And I'm going to leave the name of the promotion out of it. But I think I offended him a little bit because when we went to this show, man, this dude got, not him. We watched a guy get sued. Look, Andy's already covering his face. He knows that this larger human, let's just put it that way, was superplexed from the top of a ladder. And he put it all on the line. Like, I got to give it props. Like, but it was maybe, if not the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life to this day. Like I have never laughed so hard in my entire life. And when I saw Logan after the show, because he did great, he's an athletic, younger dude.
Of course.
And I'm like, dude, Logan, I'm like, bro, you did awesome. And I'm like, high-fiving him. I'm like, good to see you again. He's like, thank you so much for coming. And I'm like, bro, when the dude got superplexed off the top of the ladder, I was like, oh my God, dude, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And he just kind of gave me that look of just like disappointment, like, damn. And I was like, no, not like that, dude. Like, I didn't mean it like that. But yeah, I just that story always sticks out with me because I always felt so bad. But it was an interesting promotion. There was a band that played, like a country rock band that played over top of the entranceway, but they didn't play the wrestlers to the ring. They just would play while there's a battle royal going on.
Wait, what?
It was, yeah, like there was like a battle royal and there was like a country rock band playing like while the match was going.
We'll say
on.
the promotion after we stop recording.
Yeah, we'll tell you the after off air. We'll tell you the promotion. Maybe you've worked there. Who knows? But yeah, man. Is there anything you have coming up that you want to promote? And then, obviously, before we close, please tell everybody where we can find you on social media and what platforms you're on.
Yeah, by all means. So coming up, I actually gotta look at my schedule. I'm a little all over the map here. I have off.
Well, you got the one for MCW. You got that one coming up. We were talking about that.
That's July 23rd. The weekend before that, I'm defending this butte right here, July 15th, I believe, at PPW, Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling. Give them a shout on social media. What else? Yeah, I just worked, like I said, in Central PA this past weekend. I've got a few other bookings with some new promotions. I just locked in some dates with 1CW in Delaware, which was a fun time for me. The one and only time I worked for them. But yeah, again, like I said, I'm just trying to navigate new areas and try to get the name out. Like rather than just being up here in the Northeast, spread it down to the Mid-Atlantic, get out west a little bit more. I'm just really trying to stretch my wings as much as I can. But to answer the social media questions, I keep it super duper easy. Breaux Keller across all platforms at Breaux, Breaux, Keller, Keller. That's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's Instagram. Nobody else needs to see my Snapchat. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for me on my end.
Hey, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We appreciate it. And honestly, you've been super cool. You have answered so many questions that I've kind of like a lot of stuff that I've kind of wondered in my head my whole life, like things that I thought that I kind of had a hunch on and have read about, but getting some concrete, answers from you was super cool. And dude, please, like we're going to come see you at MCW, obviously, but we'd love to have you back on at some point and chat it up with us again. Maybe after Mania or something this year or something, just to catch up with you again. And we're looking super forward to like just seeing how your career progresses, man. It's been an honor talking to you.
I appreciate it, guys. No, you're way too kind. You're making me blush over here with all those nice statements, but I do appreciate it. I really do. It's been such a fun ride, and I'm really trying to take that next step now at this point. So like I said, like trying to stretch out and get to different promotions and whatnot, but yeah, it's been a long, arduous ride, I should say, especially just because, taking 2020 off, missing a whole year of wrestling for the most part, had its challenges. But yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure being on here and chatting with you guys.
Yeah. Oh, dude, anytime. And make sure you guys go see PPW champion Breaux Keller wrestle. Go see him at MCW. Go follow him on Instagram. Follow him on Twitter, Facebook, and all those good things. Follow us on social media at the PW Fan. And join us next week for episode 42. Everybody have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.